Hi everyone, in this CLO video we're going to go over using the fabric library. So I already have this dress pattern here in my CLO window. I'm just going to open up the object browser and property editor just to have this ready to see my settings that I can use. And then I'm going to open up the library, which I can do by clicking library here or by clicking Y on my keyboard, which is the shortcut. And I'm going to double click on fabric. So we automatically have all of these fabrics in our CLO library that are pre-created, that have realistic drapes, thicknesses, weights, textures, and things like that. And we can apply any of these to any of our garments, and it will carry over those realistic qualities. In a future video, I'm also going to show you how you can create your own custom fabrics, but this video will be going over the existing fabric library. If you ever see a file that is .zfab, that means that it is a fabric. And we can apply any of these to our garments by just clicking and dragging and letting go of it on top of our existing fabric here in our fabric tab in our object browser. If I turn on simulation mode, you'll see those properties apply to the fabric that are coming with my fabric from the fabric library. You can zoom in on some of them and see the texture change too if there is a texture on it. But it can be helpful to apply it while you have simulation mode on, because then you can really see the weight and the drape of the fabric change too. So you can click and drag with any of your fabrics and see them stand differently than others. So it's fun to play around with all of these and release them on here. They'll all look a little bit different, but when you find one that you're happy with and that you like, you can always close the library and continue editing it here in our object browser. So if I click on this fabric right here, I have more settings for it down in my property editor. So we know that I can always go in and change the color. If I scroll down a little bit right here, we have our color box, and I can click a color in our color box, which I go over more in another video on changing colors, which I'll link to right here. But we also have our option to adjust the opacity of our fabric and some more details down here. If you wanted it to appear thicker, you could adjust the thickness right there at the very bottom. If we wanted to apply a fabric from our fabric library that had the texture and the color coming with it, so for example, this velvet, if I click on that, you'll see the color is automatically applied there. I can still go in and I can still change the color the same way I would with any other type of fabric. If you do have a fabric that is coming in and it's looking really dark, or you're not able to recolor it, you can always go to this desaturate box right here and choose desaturate, and that would let you recolor it to the correct color. So it doesn't do anything when I check it right here because this fabric already lets me recolor it. But if you had one where the color or the pattern or print was part of the actual fabric and not just a color applied on top, this is what you would do to be able to recolor it. We can always go in and switch from the material front tab to the back tab, which would let us adjust the back separately than the front. Automatically it's going to be the same, but if I click on this checkbox to turn it off, then I can go in and I can change the back of the fabric to be different than the front. So if I were to go in and apply a color, and then I were to go in and look at my fabric, which right now I believe I have textured surface on, which is going to have the back of our fabric have a shadow on it. I need to switch to thick textured surface, which is showing the front and back of our fabric with their accurate colors without that shadow. Textured surface can be helpful if you're arranging your pattern to be able to see what's the front and what's the back of the fabric, because the back is what will have that shadow on it. But if I switch to thick textured surface mode, then I'll be able to see the fabric without the shadow. So you can see in there, that's the back of the fabric is now that color. And I can always also click Shift A to hide my avatar, and I can see the inside of that fabric. So if you had a fabric that's different on the inside and the outside, that is what you could do. If you ever wanted to bring the fabric back to be the same as the front and the back, you can choose to use same color as front, and that will just link them back. And you can do the same thing for the side of the fabric, which typically you can't see very much of, but if it is a thick fabric, you will be able to see a really slim piece of at a side view. If we wanted to have multiple fabrics used in our file or even in the same garment, we can always either click add to add a fabric, or I can click on an existing fabric and click copy. And both of these will give me those options. So say I wanted the front of this dress to be a different fabric than the back. I could rename this to be front by double clicking on that line right there just to keep it organized. And then say I want this to be the back. Then I'm going to click on the back of my pattern or the pieces that I want to apply this fabric to. Using my transform pattern tool, just click on the back body and the back collar. And then I need to click the assign button right here, which is that drop down. That will assign this fabric to this, or these pattern pieces to this fabric. Right now it's using the same as the front because I just copied the front. But if I were to go in and click and drag any fabric to the back, then you can see now it is using the back. If I were to click on this front pattern piece and click assign, it would now be in the front or in that same fabric too. So you can always click and assign different fabrics to different spots. If I wanted the back fabric to be the same as the front fabric but just a different color, then I could always go and click copy, go down to my materials, change the color, and then apply these pattern pieces to that. And now it's using the same fabric, just a different color. And I can rename them to keep them organized. And you'll notice that some of these fabrics in our object browser have that trash can icon next to them and some don't. So this lets us delete that fabric in our object browser, and it will never have the trash can icon if we're currently using it in our file. So you'll notice the two fabrics that I'm using, they don't have that trash can icon there, so we'll never let you accidentally delete something that you're using. So you can delete those things that are not currently being used. You'll notice that there's also some other symbols here next to our fabric, which is basically how we can add prints, which I go over in our texture editor tutorial, which I'll link to here. But that's basically how we can apply different fabrics from the fabric library into our CLO file. Thanks.